Saginaw Control and Engineering. Enclosures and accessories for arc flash safety. First, let's talk about what's required of an electrical enclosure to meet arc flash safety requirements. This is an easy answer. Ultimately, there is nothing required. It's up to employers to determine and perform an arc flash safety hazard analysis to determine incident energy and boundaries, then establish the level of PPE, personal protection equipment, required when accessing the enclosure. This information must be displayed on the warning label posted on each piece of electrical equipment that may be worked on while energized or when verifying power is off. This information must be reviewed at least every 5 years or when a major modification occurs. This means that the label should include a date, and the date must be documented. You can reference NFPA 70E, Standard for Electrical Safety in the Workplace, for specific details. So what are arc flash safety enclosures and accessories? Arc flash safety enclosures can assist in lowering the PPE required when accessing an enclosure or part of an enclosure. This can be done by creating an additional barrier between the worker and a higher risk area. This is done by lowering the risk at commonly accessed service areas that would otherwise require a much higher level of personal protection equipment. In many cases, the disconnect or circuit breaker is the primary source of arc flash hazard in industrial enclosures. When the disconnect or circuit breaker is turned off and proper lockout-tagout procedures are followed, there is still live power to the top lugs of the disconnect or circuit breaker unless power is shut down further upstream. This is where Saginaw Control and Engineering can help by using our internal disconnect enclosure, external disconnect, or a barrier. These devices all accomplish the same basic things. They provide the barrier needed to segregate the arc flash hazard risk and requires only that compartment has to have a high-level PPE warning label, while the rest of the enclosure may be set to a lower PPE warning label. The intent and purpose of the internal disconnect enclosure, external disconnect enclosure, or barriers are to isolate the primary power supply and prevent incidental contact with live feed, to initiate appropriate PPE labeling for entry, to help prevent unauthorized entry, and to add a protective barrier between the worker and the arc flash hazard. Other accessories that are offered can simply help prevent the need to access the enclosure in order to evaluate, troubleshoot, or service some equipment. None of these devices will contain or totally prevent an arc flash event from occurring, but with the correct arc flash hazard analysis, they can reduce the risk and lower the required PPE while adding additional protection. Saginaw Control and Engineering, your enclosure source.